Alright guys, welcome to another session of Computer Applications. In this session, I'm really just going to give you a quick overview of the research handout and go over most of the questions therein. So if you're actually watching the video, you can get all of this data pretty quick. Otherwise, I've got the links there that you can go through as well. Right, the computer processor is the brain of the computer. It's what does the thinking. It's what does the calculation. That's why it's called CPU, stands for Central Processing Unit. So it's all it's doing is sitting there processing through. That's what it is. That's what it does. The processor speed is usually measured in gigahertz, but it's important because it tells you how fast a computer can get tasks done. For the most part. It gets a little more complicated in today's world because of advances in technology, but for the most part, when you look at it, a 2.1 gigahertz processor is going to be slower than a 2.5. So that's just something to keep in mind. The two major software companies today that produce processors and work on advancing them are Intel and AMD. Intel and AMD, actually they both started as the same company, but eventually AMD kind of broke off and started to do its own thing. But they've taken the share of the market, and there really aren't any other competitors with them. The three groups of processors are low-end, middle, and high-end processors. The low-end processors are going to be ones that you'll find in like Chromebooks or things of that nature, because they're really designed for just being on the internet. Checking email, playing flash games, and things of that nature. Your middle-end processors, your middle-class processors, are going to be the ones that people use for heavy word processing. It's going to be most of the computers you'll get from like Apple or from Walmart or things of that nature. They're going to have pretty much midline processors. They're not really designed for heavy utilization. Where your high-end processors, those are going to be ones you'll find in like servers or in big companies, because they need to do lots of calculations. Especially lots of calculations really fast. So the two things you need to consider when you're looking at buying a computer, especially a computer processor, are the state of your finances, because obviously you don't want to buy something that is going to set you back a lot of money. But at the same time, you also want to buy the best processor that you can, one that's going to have good enough speed to be able to help you get your job done, but not take too long. All right, a hard drive is how we store information. It's the name given to a long-term storage, or if you will, long-term memory. And it's measured in really three different categories in today's world. You've got the megabyte, the gigabyte, and the terabyte. You can abbreviate those MB, GB, and TB, and really it's just, their sizes are advancing. So a gigabyte is 1,000 times more than a megabyte, but a terabyte's 1,000 times more than a gigabyte. Something to keep in mind as you're looking at hard drive capacities. The typical range of hard drives today are about 128 gigabytes to 4 terabytes or even more. It seems like every fiscal quarter, as companies release new products, they tend to release more space, more storage, as they keep advancing through in technology. Clock speed has to deal with the CPU, that central processing unit we talked about in question 1. The clock speed is how fast the computer can get through a task. It actually is talked about in how fast the processor is actually oscillating, or the frequency that it's moving at, which actually relates to question B there. It's measured in gigahertz. GHz And that's how you'll see it spelled out. And all that is how fast is the processor, oscillating, how fast is it getting through tasks as it's going forward. Your random access memory, the easiest way to think about it is it's like the short-term memory inside your own brain. Random access memory is there for keeping documents handy so that you can quickly access them, but not keep them around for a long time. So like when you're playing like a video game, right, it'll load the next part of the level inside of your RAM, but your like saved game progress will be stored on the hard drive. All right, so you need that next level fast so that you can keep playing and keep moving through it, but things like your save data you don't necessarily access all the time, so that's going to be on your hard drive. The result of adding more RAM to your computer is that it'll run faster because it doesn't have to go to the hard drive all the time to pull down new data. It can just access it. I mean, it's right there. The cache of the computer is what's located on the CPU. It's actually a little bit of RAM that's souped up, if you will. It allows you to get through tasks extremely quickly, but it's really small and really expensive. It's important to look at it when you're buying a computer because it'll help your computer run way faster, but it's also extremely expensive to produce, to manufacture, and so it'll be pricey. So you need to have a balance between your cache on your CPU and your RAM, so that you're not spending too much for one or the other product. An optical drive is, it's also referred to as a CD drive or a CD/DVD drive. It allows you to store data onto a disk that you can move around. I know they're becoming less and less common now, but it's still good to know and have them because a lot of times your backups and things will be stored on an optical drive. Which actually leads into question 8, the difference between read-only media, recordable media, and rewritable media. Read-only media is manufactured in such a way that your optical drive, your CD drive, can only read the data that's on there. I know that sounds kind of self-explanatory, but that's the way it's set up. Recordable media is set so that you can record to it once. Basically, once you've written your data to it, it becomes like read-only media. So these two are kind of related to each other. So read-only media is like recordable media. Recordable media is something that you can write to once, and it becomes read-only media. And finally, rewritable is something that is a continuous thing, so that you can go through it multiple times. So that should get you through the computer research handout. Now you just got to Google computer buying tips, and you should be good to go. So go ahead and finish that up and turn it in.